Hey guys, it's me, Alexander Jarvis from alexanderjarvis.com, founder of 50 Folds. So in this video, we're going to be going through the e-commerce financial model, which I presume you now have. And what we're going to be covering are some of the basics about how the models are structured up, some formatting, some tips to make sure that you're set up right. And then we'll also have a quick walkthrough through the model before we get into all the individual sheets, which you're probably ultimately wondering about. We'll start high level now, okay? So first off, you can actually see the version that you have, just in case there's something wrong and you want to ask me a question about, why, I don't know, something you think there might be an error. You can always reference what version of that is, and I send free updates as I actually do them, although these days I don't really make that many updates since everything kind of works. First sheet you're going to be seeing is a guide, intro sheet, tell you what the sheets are, explain how formatting, etc. works. I recommend reading this. There's some tips which I will be sharing with you right now, but I'll walk you through them anyway. Bear in mind that the standard version that I sell is a filled-in version, which is helpful because you can actually see that it works and how it works. And if you want, you can actually just build off, say, the assumptions that are in there and iterate on that till you get to where you want it to be. There is a blank version which you could opt to purchase, which is fully blank in case you know how this stuff works and you just want to fill it in. Okay, the first thing you want to do is make sure, if you're on a PC, hit Alt-T-O and you'll pull up your settings. So go into formulas and make sure that you're set on automatic, okay? If things are on manual, nothing is going to change. If you change a formula, it's not going to update, okay? So make sure automatic is turned on. Now in these financial models, I try and build them so there's no iterative calculations. If for some reason there's something wonky, you can try turning on enable iterative calculations. It does typically make models slower, but I don't think there's any in this model. But just in case, that's something you can check, but generally just turn it off. If you want to be nerdy, you can go down to advanced, and to make sure that Excel runs as quick as it can possibly do, you can enable multi-threaded calculations here and then set it to use all the processors on this computer. And that will hopefully try and make the calculations run as quickly as possible. If you're using a crappy computer, you probably won't see that. So if you have a half-decent laptop computer, then that is an option for you. You can tell that I've got a pretty good laptop. But let's leave that at that. What else do I want to talk about? Okay, cell formatting, okay? I explain it down here. It's important to know what you should touch and what you shouldn't touch, okay? Because I've done all the work for you. All you're meant to really do is just fill in the things. Of course, if you want to customize it, you can either reach out to me or you just do it yourself. You just need to know what you're doing. But understand, if it's a yellow box, you can touch it. So here, we'll see there's drop-down menus because it's black. If it's in blue text here, it means you can touch it. Everything that's linked to another sheet is going to be in a green cell, so you know it's linked to another sheet, and those links all come at the top of the sheet. And then most of what's going to be in the model are formulas. Don't touch those unless you know what you're doing and you purposely want to change things. Only touch things in yellow boxes, which should hopefully spell that out. But I'll give you another example as we go through this so you can actually see what those examples look like. All right, let's bump into a sheet such as expense calcs, right? So the way the logic's been done, I've tried to let everything flow as logical as possible. So everything that comes into a sheet is in the link assumptions here, okay? You see they're all green other than the yearlies, which are the summations of them. They're all green, okay? And then the links out all come from summaries. So if you're wondering where the links are between things, the link assumptions is links into a sheet, the summary goes links out into other sheets, and then you have all your calculations that come down below. All right, and then these will all filter up to the summary, which will then go into the other sheets. You don't have random links coming into cell 134 on other sheets. Now back on that formatting point, you can see here all these formulas are in black, okay, and we have assumptions which you can fill in here. They're yellow, like they're pretty much spelled out. And one thing to bear in mind is I typically put assumptions in one row unless it's a growth rate or something. You can actually change these if you want. So all you do is you copy and paste. So say the minimum orders before you get a new warehouse in future, you call it 5,000, right? And then you can see that the links are going to the previous cell, and you can change that, right? You can change them as you go. I recommend copying and then pasting it so it retains the formatting. If you go, oh, actually, I don't want that anymore, I want to keep it at 2,000 and just keep it consistently and simple for the whole thing, which makes it easier for investors to potentially understand, you just copy it back, right? Or just copy whatever formula if you want to rejig everything, because typically the formulas are the same everywhere. If things are dynamic, I've built in dynamic formulas into them. So look for yellow boxes. If we look at, say, the staff sheet, payroll and taxes, 17% applies to everyone here. See, it links here, applies to everyone equally. Everyone is 17% tax. You can change it if you want to, whatever your state or country or the average or however you want to calculate it, to 22% just by typing it in. It's all formatted for date, so if you're firing someone on 1st of February, 2023, or God knows why, you type it in, it's automatically formatted. All currencies numbers are formatted exactly as they should be. So if it's a salary, it's a dollar number. If it's a date, whatever, it's a date, okay? Or a percentage is a percentage, and everything's formatted in particular kinds of ways. And you can see here again that there's no links in this. The links are actually, some of the sheets, the links, because there's so many links, there's not a link assumptions section at the top. That's because there would be so many links, it just kind of makes the model hard to follow, but you'll know exactly where they are. So we can see here that there are links actually built in, I think. Here we can see that they're green because it's linked to the expense calcs sheet, okay? Which leads back to one other point is I build all my models in dollars. There's a reason for that. It's because all investors actually understand dollars. And frankly, if you're running an international organization, it's typically best practice just to run in dollars. So everyone reports in the same numbers. I have a blog called Why You Should Use Dollars or something in your financial model. Check that out if you want to understand more of my logic. It's in my blog, which I'm sure you've been reading a lot of. But if, say, I don't know, you want to do it in euros, or in your Malaysia and you want to use ringgit or Singapore dollars, I've built in 17 different ways of doing it. You look at the drop-down menu and you can see all the versions that there are here, and you can change it to whatever, Israeli, I don't know what they have. Here are the different currencies you can change it into. I built some the most common ones. Changing this is not really going to do anything. What you have to do is have the 50 folds add-in, which I built just because I'm a nerd and I wanted to tick a nerd box. And you can then hit this button, currency swap, and it'll change every single cell format from dollars into whatever, Malaysian ringgit or Israeli somethings, Swiss francs, whatever. So you can download that model, install it, plug in, and run it, and that works all great. Next, okay, I built the model using best practice from investment banking. I used to be an investment banker, doing lots of fun stuff. And so every single annual, say here, 1 year, 1, 2, 3, EFG, or the monthly start in I is the same in absolutely every single sheet. Okay, so you can see the first month here is I, then we have EFG, I don't know, paid on organic, right? I. So when you're looking at formulas and just want to make sure everything makes sense, you can see that all the formulas will be I. If it's column N, it'll be N. So everything is in the same columns. I think the only exceptions are going to be the P&L. No, actually, everything's the same. Cool. So that's something to bear in mind. Everything is always in the same column. Groupings. In case you don't know, here's how you group and ungroup things. I use groupings everywhere so that you can have high-level views and then detailed views when you want to kind of review things. So, I don't know, expense calcs. You can see here, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 levels. Well, level 1 makes everything really small, so you can just see what the key things in. You go, oh, I want to see payment costs or something. You click this, it gets bigger. If you want to unhide everything, you click 4 or 3 or 2, depending on how the groupings have been structured in that sheet, and you can suddenly see the thing becomes a lot larger. If you are playing around and you're doing some calcs and you don't want to look at something like, oh, I don't know, don't want to see that, press the grouping. Don't want to see that, press the grouping. You don't see return costs anymore. Okay, also now next, what I've done is all the tabs you can see are Joseph and the Technicolor Raincoat formatted. So here this is in purple, the boring P&L stuff is all in blue. Random things like source and use KPI sheets are in green or dark green. Stuff, expense calcs are in a lighter green. The calcs here are in blues, and then the marketing sheets are all in yellow. So you can more easily kind of see what's going on in Funky Town. Next thing I want to mention is you need to save your file regularly, because I can't tell you how depressing it is to spend a bunch of time updating a model only for something to get a bloom screen of death and suddenly lose like 6 hours of work. So literally, like, at least every half an hour, maybe even 15 minutes, you want to save your model as a new version. Now that can be a bit of a pain in the ass because you've got to save as and then write the formatting thing. Again, if you get my module macro, all you do is press save model version, and you suddenly see here, you've been saved as version 2. Okay, you're editing the current version. The last model is a backup where you save the model. Okay, so wherever you saved it, it's going to save the old version and then create a new version for you to keep working on. So if something happens, or maybe you mess something up and you want to go back, you just open the last version. So do this like every 15-30 minutes or something. Okay, and you can see here it says filled version 2 automatically. If I do it again, save model, it tells you it's been saved. It says version 3. This is super valuable. Okay, seriously, do it. Lastly, we're going to have a quick walk through the model so you understand what's in these sheets. Okay, so the starting points, right? As I said, you can see, go away. The cover version, just you can make your own. You can, whatever, delete this, delete my thingy, whatever, delete the version. It can be for model for some investor if you want. I don't really care. Or just delete the sheet, up to you. But I've just done it to make it look all fancy. Or tried to. Intro, again, I recommend just reading it. I know it looks boring, but you may as well. Typically the stuff I write is not totally stupid. See what the sheets are, formatting, cool, okay? Formatting, you want to go, this is the first thing you want to do when you open the sheet. You're going to set the dates, what your month, year end, this is going to be in US dollars unless you want to use my macro to change the formatting, and what your corporation tax rate. It says income tax, but corporation tax. Input corporate tax is applicable. The only time you're going to update this is when you want to change your dates. Okay, I think I'm going to cover this in the next video, so let's just skip on. So this blue section here is all sort of P&L related. So you've got 3 sheets here: P&L actual, your forecast, and combined. Let's deal with those 3 as a group now. So your P&L actual are your actuals that you've actually done, completed months. Now there's only 11 here, month 11, because 12 months would be a historic year. You've completed it, right? This is more focused on the future. My assumption is that you're not, some 10-year-old company. If you are, maybe you deal with your historicals a different way. I don't personally care. This is very focused on your forecast, the future. So you can update this up, and say if you get to month 11, what you're just going to do is change the date to the start of the year here, and suddenly you'll just have 1 column. Okay. You want to fill in all the boxes in yellow as best as you can. Some don't matter as much as they do, but ideally, if you understand the structure of it, it'll be useful to be able to continually update this with those numbers. So you're going to fill that in. The P&L forecast, there's very few things that you're going to be popping in here. Again, I'm going to cover this in a separate video. And then the combined basically just takes the P&L and the forecast and combines them together. So it goes January, February, March, where as you see here, it starts in April. So we're getting the first 3 months of the actuals plus January, February, March, and then the forecast starts here. And when you change this in the formatting date, this will automatically change in the combined, just so you can see the natural progression. Make sure your growth rates are kind of consistent, because you see, I don't know, in the first 3 months you had 10% calculation rates, now you're assuming 5%. Why is that, right? P&L for deck, like, you can do whatever you want. Nothing's linked to it. I don't care. I just made something kind of what I personally think is kind of interesting, which if you wanted to put it in your pitch deck, you can. Don't ask me questions about what you should put in it. That's up to you. I just made it to give you kind of an example, all right? It just shows like 12 months and then your yearlies, but do whatever you want to. I don't care. Next, we're going to have your depreciation and tax. We'll deal with this in the next video, although I'm not going to get into too much detail. You are either a nerd or you're not. This just does really complicated stuff without you having to do almost anything, to be honest. Next, we've got sort of like optional sheets or like useful ones. Source new sheet basis helps you figure out like how long is your runway going to last based on your assumptions, and you can change assumptions here. And it makes some pretty charts, which if you wanted to, you could put into your pitch deck and have some summaries. The KPI sheet is your best friend when it comes down to checking that the model makes sense. This is what I would always go in. You can see different profit contributions, the financials, cost structures, where is money being allocated, making sure things add up, hopefully. Your key metrics, acquisition costs, and the like. This is what I would constantly refer to if I'm updating a model to make sure that nothing looks stupid. Charts are kind of pretty obvious. They're just like all the charts in the whole model. So if you want to flick through, make sure that things are kind of trending right. New customers versus whatever, new versus repeat. Doesn't it make sense? I don't know, but it's the charts. Now we've got expenses, where the money goes. Staff. It's kind of a big sheet, but lets you do what you want to do. Okay, so you can be putting in when you're hiring people, if you give them salaries and if you give them salaries, maybe not yourself, bonuses, if you're going to increase their salaries at a certain point. And in here, there are some automations. If you say have photographers or assistants, it says calculated, okay? But it's basically just going to add up your costs. And then we're going to make it really simple on a per person basis. How much are you thinking about the cost? Because frankly, who gives a shit about, like, do we have a sauna? How many people have licenses or something? How many pencils do we have? Like, no investor cares, and you don't want to think about it too. So I just make it really simple. And that deals with basically almost all your costs. And then in the expense calcs, in here we're going to be covering warehousing costs, return costs, payment technology costs, and the like. There's all sorts of things to help you do this in relatively fancy ways, which just are pretty logical. Again, I'll cover this in another video. Cohort builds, basically lots of calculations. There's important things, assumptions you're going to have to be putting in here, which I will again deal with you. But basically, it's just like all the back-end calculations to figure out the fancy stuff. The SKU sheets is stock keeping units, like your bags and accessories. You'll be wanting to fill this in to kind of be figuring out what the average costs of things, what the cost basis of what you're selling is. It's e-commerce, right? So you'll be using this to calculate the prices of the things that you're selling. The final part is we have this marketing section. Okay, so most businesses are based off paid, and then everything else is used to decrease the weighted average cost of capital, or the average cost of an acquisition cost, not weighted average cost of capital. So these are going to feed into a marketing sheet, but let's just deal with, say, paid and organic here. So the organic part is really simple. We just see, we get people coming to our website because we do stuff, I don't know, and that will add in. And then we're going to spend money on different channels. So $10,000 a month doing Google ads. We'll spend $5,000 a month on Facebook, and at some point we'll start doing that here. So we'll be doing affiliates in whatever month 14 or something here. You just type in how much you're spending, what the CPCs are, and it'll tell you, effectively how much traffic you're going to be generating. Email, the blog and social, especially in e-commerce where your acquisition costs pretty important. These are going to help you argue with investors of why your average acquisition cost might be lower than just spending money on Google ads, right? Oh, we'll be doing emails and we'll get featured and stuff, and like hopefully people will come for free. We'll cover these in different videos, but basically these all just generate traffic. Once you have those, you want to convert them into registered users who put in their email on the site, typically. Then those registered users, on a percentage basis, will become customers at some point of time. That's the logic, okay? And so here, you're going to be taking that traffic, saying what the conversion rate's going to be, which you can optimize. So starting conversion rate, which you can optimize or de-optimize over time. There are reasons why actually your acquisition costs will increase, but you can deal with that by, say, increasing the cost of your CPCs over time, as you probably deal with less specific keywords, but you could argue we get better and therefore conversion rates increase. So there's lots of things you can play with it depending on the argument that you want to make. Okay, so there you go, guys. That's a very quick intro into the e-commerce module. Hopefully you've got the basics of what you need to be doing to setting up. covering a lot of the things which I've had over time, people not being quite sure of. So I'm going to hit you up with the next video in a second, and I'm going to make up how to actually approach filling this model once you download it and think, what the fuck do I do now? Okay? Bye guys, keep hustling.